The Alamo is one of those places that everybody in the world knows about, but they basically only know about the battle. Today, we're going to be talking about what else has happened. San Antonio was first discovered by Europeans in the 1530s by a guy named Cabeza de Vaca. He was a conquistador that got stranded in Florida and slowly made his way over to Texas. His story is incredible. At that time, there was basically nobody there. There was a few Native American tribes that would stop in the San Antonio area just for the prickly pear cactus harvest, until 1691 when some more Spaniards showed up. Now the problem is with San Antonio, if you've ever been there, is it's horrible. It's a desert, it's super hot, and it's very humid, and there's basically nothing to eat there. Within a short time period, they kind of left. Then they started trying to come back about 30 years later in 1718. Now the problem is that when that happens, they just continue to have problems. They would try and inhabit it and they'd kind of give up. There'd be different time periods where there'd be a lot of people there, then there'd be different time periods where there's basically nobody there. But in that 1718 period, that's when they first started building a building that would become the mission. Now, it was destroyed in 1724, and then it wasn't until 1744 that they decided to actually start building what would later become known as the Alamo. However, that was then destroyed again, because guess what? It's not easy to build things, especially in the middle of nowhere. In 1758, they finally started building the mission again. And this time they started having a little bit more success. 200 Native Americans that decided to join the mission and become Christians. However, Apache and Comanche raids were constant, as well as disease. And so during this time period, you 40 people, and then sometimes you would have hundreds of people. A good question is, where did the name the Alamo come from? Because who knows? Well, there's a couple different theories. The first one being that the Alamo is the Spanish word for cottonwood. There are many cottonwood trees in the area. Just ask my allergies the last time I visited. Another option, which is also very likely, the Second Flying Company of San Carlos de Parras was a Spanish unit that was stationed in the Alamo. Now, this company of soldiers was from a place called Alamo. Now, during the Mexican War of Independence, the Alamo served as a prison. At a certain point, it also became used as San Antonio's first hospital. And then in 1821, when Mexico won its independence, it was then transferred over from Spain to Mexico. The Texas Revolution started in 1835. There was a siege almost immediately on the Alamo, which lasted about 2 months before the Mexican military there capitulated. Now we get to the big thing, the Alamo, the Battle of the Alamo, the most important thing about the Alamo. Well, guess what? I'm not going to go super in depth with that. If you'd like to hear that, put it down in the comments and let me know. However, about 2,000 Mexican soldiers fought there, and about 400 to 600 of them died while fighting there. On the other hand, the Texans, there was only 185 to 260 Texans that were there, and all but 3 of them ended up dying during the battle. On March 6th, 1836, Mexicans overwhelmed the defenses of the Texans, and everybody was slaughtered except for 3 people. And now we know many of the names from the Battle of the Alamo. We have Davy Crockett, we have James Bowie, or Bowie, depending on where you're from. He invented the Bowie knife, by the way, or the Bowie knife. And from then on, the Alamo occasionally went back and forth between being captured by the Mexicans, being captured by the Texans, not really being used by anybody until the end of the war. And then it was kind of abandoned and nobody was really using it until the Mexican-American War started. The US Army took over the mission, and during this time period, the US Army fixed up the complex. In 1855, the Catholic Church sued, and the Supreme Court of Texas ruled that they did in fact own the Alamo because no one actually bought it. During this entire time, the Army just started paying them rent, and they just kind of stayed there. In 1861, the Confederates declared their own independence, the Civil War started, and they took over the Alamo. Following the war, the U.S. Army continued using the Alamo until 1876, when they abandoned it, and the Catholic Church sold a portion of it to a grocery store chain, and it became a grocery store. Follow my YouTube channel. In 1883, Texas bought the chapel of the Alamo. And so from then on, they slowly started turning it more and more into a tourist attraction. During this time, the Daughters of the Texas Republic began. The main tenets of the Daughters of the Texas Republic was to preserve the Alamo. Over the 1900s, Texas slowly started buying more and more land around the Alamo. The Daughters of the Texas Republic continued to control the Alamo until 2015, when it was overturned and given to the state of Texas to take care of. Now, the Alamo is one of the most important sites in America, if not the world. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, after all.